My full name is actually Fahema, so I'm born as a Cape Malay. I'm originally from a place called Kimberley, and Kimberley is where the first diamonds were mined, and so that is the most very popular town in Southern Africa. Anyway, when we were tiny, my parents decided that education is very important, and they chose to bring us to come and stay in Cape Town. So from the age of 7 years old, I've been living in Cape Town. All my relatives are still in Kimberley, and yes, that was a great change for us, but we adapted. We were English speaking in Kimberley, and when we were brought to Cape Town, we then had to do an Afrikaans school for the first 5 years of our lives, junior school, and then we moved into high school and we went to the best school. In Cape Town, it's called Livingston High School, and that's where I ended my schooling career. I came from Kimberley, as I told you, which is a little district where the mining, the first diamond was mined. It's still there. People are still mining diamonds in Kimberley. We came to Cape Town, and my very first school was also a Moravian school. So it's an Afrikaans school and church. So I attended in Lansdowne, another suburb in Cape Town, southern suburbs area. And I also did my schooling from, there wasn't a grade, it was standards. So standard 1 so we were so grade 1 and grade 2 is called sub A and sub B. So I was doing sub A and sub B up until standard 5, which is grade 7 at this Moravian school. And then we got an application at the best school. She will definitely vouch for that. And I finished schooling. So with being in apartheid years, unfortunately, there wasn't choice of jobs. So my father had to choose for me to say to me that the best thing that you can do is do either nursing or become a teacher. So I chose nursing, and I am actually a qualified nurse as well. Even though in my married years, because my husband was then a salesman, and it was difficult to have a salesman coming home and not finding his wife at home. And I felt it also for myself. We weren't in the struggle, but we had a difficult way to get to the workplace, because getting to work was exceptionally hard. The way that government had actually, when they evicted people and segregated them and separated us into different regions and areas, the best of hospital, all the hospitals were in white areas. So the colored people has to travel very far to get to the hospital to be on time. The white people were placed, which is the white surroundings or white area surroundings, they are close to the hospitals, and they also are easier to get to hospital. We got lesser pay than them because we're paid in categories. You're black, you get the least pay. When you're middle class or colored, you get at least the middle share, and if you're white, you get the highest paid. So the white person gets richer because she's got no expenses. She can walk to the hospital. I've got to travel a longer way to get to the hospital for the middle part of the salary. And the least salary earned person is the black person. They have to travel all the way to a long distance, let's call it Langa and Nyanga and Gugule, to get 3 or 4 buses to get to the workplace. They've got absolute nothing. So the poor stay poor and the rich got richer. That's basically the little story that you need to know exactly why certain people are much richer than us and having the best of areas, and why we are still struggling. So this is part of the struggle. Therefore, you've got what you've got now, the crime rate. My next career after that, after the marriage, I decided I'm going to have my little girl, which is my only child. She's 42 years old now. And it was for me, because I was a nurse, we had a massive logo, that big billboards, plan a smaller family for a better future. And that is what my choice was. Plan a smaller family for a better future. I was different to the ones that actually had thought that babies wasn't meant for me. I preferred to have given one child, the better of what I could afford and lifestyle-wise. Then my sister, who was after me, I'm the eldest of the sisters. We are 7 children. So my eldest brother, he was a chemical engineer. He's just passed on 2 years ago. Then I've got another brother who's an electrical engineer. Then I've got a brother who's a maths and science lecturer in Dubai. He's just come back. 2 weeks ago, and he's now permanently, after his retirement time, he's come back. He's waiting for his cargo load to come via ship, and based himself back into his home that's been standing here with just 2 children of his that came to study at South African University. And then I'm the eldest sister. Then behind, after me, comes 3 more siblings. They're also girls. So I'm a jack of all trades. My other sister is an advocate. So she's an advocate in Johannesburg. She's an advocate of South African National Press Council. And then my other sister is a Montessori school owner. She owns 2 schools. And the last sister is a legal conveyancer. So I am also in the legal field. I've got a degree in paralegal studies. So I've studied at the South African Law Society, and I worked for the biggest bank. It's international. It's called the Barclays Bank Group. That's West Bank in Cape Town, and I managed the team of 60 people every day. So I'm fully retired now, and 20 years ago I started a new style of lifestyle. Less of stress, less of heavy mind. My mind was loaded with lots of things like, you know, let me tell you, if you work with people who actually owns property or anything of assets, and you cannot cope with your finances, you will definitely be in trouble, because wherever you borrowed your money, you'll have to pay back. So then it ends up at us, and we unfortunately have to detach your property from you, whatever you own, your car, your house. And then you have on the other end of the line the caller who is in dire stress with his rope around his neck, and he will tell you that in actual fact, this is the end of it. I cannot cope. Where am I going with my children? We talk about any class, whether you're white, the richest of white, because if you go into sequestration, you lose everything. Your commercial properties, vehicles, everything, your staff, your employees, assets, everything. And that is billions of rands. So I was in charge of that department. And so I had to play the counselor role as well. Please, Mr. Jones, I understand clearly where you come from. Is there any other way that we could do to make a payment arrangement? If you cannot, let me help you also in another way. The property that you have, will you be able to put it out for rental? Will you be able to move into a smaller section of your house? Can you maybe sell something? Is someone skilled in home baking or something, and start something to start all over again? Whether you just can feed your children and send them to school. Because education again is king, no matter how hard the struggle is. We all need to get to the education, to get yourself at least onto the road of success. So anyway, it became a bit stressful, and I thought, you know, I need to control myself, because it comes with anger as well. And you take it home, you take it to your house. And having only one husband and one child, you cannot take it out on them. It's like she decided teaching is enough. Now for me it was like, this is enough. So I started a homestay, which I have. So I do a 20-sleeper student lodge. So I'm the owner of it, and I've been taking care of 3,000 students over 20 years. So I do about 100 to 150 per annum. And I'm passionate about it. I go all out. I love cooking.
Very.
I go all out. I also empower housekeepers who comes from rural grounds, and they themselves are in the struggle with their children. So I give them hope and a lot of educational conversation with them as well. Where do you start with your poor children? Send money home and let your mother take care of them. Get them to school, further their education. You work for me, and you will also see the changes that happens to you. So yes, they are happy. They work for 8 to 10 years with me, which means if they were unhappy, they wouldn't have stayed on. So that's the other joys about myself. So I'm a people's person, and I am passionate about people. I love to be never alone, but I'm not lonely. So I've got a handful of friends, but people that I have the love for, that I share with, and they trust me. And we trust one another, so therefore we uplift one another because of trust. We can tell the story and give the person some life again, that in actual fact, you know, it's almost like a wilting flower, where if you water it, it will grow again. That's the moral of my topic that I had right now. That I was almost going to say to myself, I'm one of those people on the line that says, I don't know what to do. Because I was like mentally drained. You're forever giving. After about 10 years in a certain department, especially in counseling, it drains you because you are draining yourself onto the next person. You're trying to give, but the empathy that you have, it becomes weaker. And I'm guaranteeing you that. You can feel it. You can feel that the empathy is no longer that strong because you have to repeat the story. It's starting with, I'm so sorry, Mrs. Jones. I understand where you're coming from. And that is already a little nursery rhyme. You begin with a nursery rhyme. Good morning. How are you doing today? So you shouldn't be actually saying every day the same thing. I'm sorry, Mrs. Jones, I understand where you come from. That's not the way to go. You should actually just say whatever else. I mean, it's free talk. What can you say to give the person on the other line a little bit of different? Because he's probably going to say, oh, I know that first 3 lines already by now, because it's time to call you every month to tell you that I can only make this a payment arrangement and on the other.
Felicity Durando, married into Durando, but I was born Adams. My mom came from Neisner, and she came from Neisner to come and work here in Cape Town. She grew up on the farm, and this I need to tell you, it was only about now 10 years ago that we discovered that the farm that my grandfather got was actually a present that my family, the Peterson family, got from Queen Elizabeth. And so the farm is still there, but now with all the infighting, the farm is just there. Coming back to Cape Town, yeah, my father was from District 6 and my mom was from Neisner. She came to Cape Town and they met each other through friends and then they got married. I'm the third eldest. I went to school. I started my school at Moravian, and Moravian was built in 1847. So that is where I started, sub A and sub B that years, and my class was in the church building. And then they built the new school nearer to our home, which is called Florian. I did my primary years there, and from there I went to Steenberg High, finished standard 8, and then I went to Wesley Teaching College. I did 2 years there, and then I went back at principal at my primary school, Florian, invited me to start my teaching career there. But then this Lavendale opened and they built 2 new schools, and then all the teachers that was over the amount at other schools, they had to come to the 2 new schools, which today is still standing, Laverne and Hillwood. So I got married from there, but I furthered my education. I then became the deputy principal at Prince George. Yeah, and then 3 years after that, into that, I then decided 2003. I'm going to. I was just driving in the car, in the bus, coming from Wynberg, and it was a nice sunny day. And this thought just came to mind: I don't want to teach anymore. I want to travel. The travel bug bit me. And then I went to New Zealand, see if I can get my luck, because then I was divorced. And my 2 children, I had lovely children, especially my son. And then I came back, and because the longing for home was too great. Then I came back, but I still wanted to travel, but I couldn't afford it. And then I thought, I'm going to go to Saudi Arabia. I had 10 most pleasant years. Yes, and my learners that I had there, they're all doctors now, and we're still in touch with each other. So in 1977, I got married, and out of the marriage, my son Gino and my daughter, after 6 years, my daughter was born, and schooling was for me, the education was for me very, very important. So, and my son finished matric in 2002, and my daughter then continued hers, and in 1998, my marriage got into a bit of a struggle and a problem, and I then decided to divorce. I didn't tell anybody. Nobody knew that I was going to divorce. Not even my parents, not even a friend, not a colleague, nobody. Only my children. Because I didn't want, the reason why I didn't speak about it is that I just thought it was a case between me and my ex-husband, and I didn't want any interferences. I just wanted to get it over and done. And then my son at that stage was staying with my mom. I'm a very strict mother, a very strict teacher too. So much so that my son went to go because he couldn't handle it anymore. And then he finished matric, and then he came home one day. He came home and said to me, "Mom, I would like to see you." Phone me, and I said, "Yes, come." And then he spoke to me. He said he would like to further his studies, but he hasn't got any money. So I said, no problem. I will put you through your studies. And then after that, I became divorced, and my husband, I then said, "You will have to move out now." I said he must go stay for another year to get him on his feet again. He can stay in the servant quarters, but after a year, you need to move out. And then after a year, he moved out, and it was on New Year's Eve that he left. And that was the first time that I cried, because I thought all these years, and I saw him walking down the road with a bag on his shoulders. And that is what I didn't foresee that for my life, but I couldn't take it anymore. Like I said, I'm very strict. I don't take any nonsense. And so now I just, one day while teaching, 2002 or 2004, I was coming from Wynberg, going down in the main road with a bus, and the sun it was a lovely spring day. And just on the spur of a moment, I thought, I'm going to leave the teaching career now. I want to venture into something else. And I got at school, and I said to the secretary, "Listen, get somebody in my place." And she got somebody in my place, and after a month I was sorry I took that. I decided to make that decision. And then I phoned the department. The department said, "No, Mrs. Turando, you made that decision, and you've got somebody in your place. What do we do with that person?" But you know, it was all in God's hands. I then went off, and then I decided, like I said, I decided to go to New Zealand first, but I didn't like it there. My neighbor and I went for 2 months. Christmas we came back because I missed my children too much. And then I came back. December I came back. We worked there, and I met Capetonians. It was lovely, but it was my first experience, and I missed out too much. And then through an agent, I went to Saudi Arabia, and I worked there for a private person, also Saudis, and I was there for 6 months. Again, I came home. But another colleague of mine, she contacted me and she said, "There's a post for you," but this was at the military. Now I was not employed by the military, but it is at the military hospital. So they get doctors in from other countries, and they come over with their children. So they must see that the children go into a school. And so we went to this military hospital school, but it wasn't for Saudis, although Saudis make applications, because it was all international teachers that was, and they wanted their children to speak English, the proper English, and but they weren't allowed. So, but what we could do for them is we could private teach their children. So I was there for 10 years, and then after 10 years, my son said to me, "Mommy, it's time for you to come home." And then I said, "Man," because then the market just took a plunge. And I said, just allow me. And then he said, "Okay, I will allow you for another 3 years. But other than that, you will have to come home now." Because I also needed to move on with my life, which was a lie. It was never true. He just wanted me to come home. And then I came home in 2016, and of course I was now, I didn't want to go back into permanency at our teaching, and then I just came in as a volunteer. So I was teaching in South Africa. And in September we have an exam that the year 3s and the year 6s and the year 9s, they must write every year, but that is only in the Western Cape. So then they asked me to do that every year. So you go into the schools and you just present the exam. You don't mark, and that is how they can see what the rate of the teaching is in the Western Cape.